Rich Eisen here, talking about the intrigue around the 49ers quarterback situation. Now, everyone knows last year I was very tuned into the 49ers because of my Super Bowl ticket. I like the 49ers. I like Kyle Shanahan a lot. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. And I'm interested with this quarterback situation myself because it's Brock Purdy has kind of become this media darling where Brock Purdy is, everyone loves him. They love the story. They love all that stuff about him. They love, and you kind of have this mystique because you don't know how the season would have ended because he got hurt in the playoff game and he couldn't wrap a bow on his season. So people just kind of assume that Brock Purdy is the franchise guy now for the Niners. I have voiced that I thought Purdy was a good story. Purdy was a good game manager, but I'm not totally sure if I would say, okay, I've seen enough. Brock Purdy is my guy. I've actually said the opposite. I've said I don't think I saw enough to be confident in Brock Purdy being my guy. I'm not John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I don't know what was said during the draft to get Trey Lance. I don't know what the conversation was there. I've heard different things. I have said different things of what I think happened. I've said I think they were trying to leverage a deal to get Aaron Rodgers, and all hell broke loose, and they just had to make a pick. I've heard that they wanted Mac Jones, but the ownership or the fan base or whatever forced them to swing the decision, and so they panicked and took Trey Lance. But something happened to where they gave up a ton to move up to that pick and took Trey Lance. So I have to believe at this point that they have a quarterback who they have a ton of draft capital in behind Brock Purdy. I would not be surprised at all if Trey Lance ends up being the starter in San Francisco. Would not be surprised at all if that was the case. If he is not the case, or if that's not the case, if Trey Lance does not play, it tells you that Trey Lance can't play. If they've seen this much Trey Lance in practice and they have this much invested into Trey Lance and they say, we can't play him over Brock Purdy, we can't do it. If that's the case, Trey Lance flat out can't play.
They expect Purdy to be back.
So the one thing, I love how I let Rich talk for about half a second there. The one thing I'll give Purdy is that I've heard from every account that he is a locker room god. That people in the locker room love him. That Purdy has big old cojones. That Purdy is the cowboy, the captain. He's the gunslinger. He is who they want under center as far as like the boys in the locker room. Those kind of intangibles you can't teach. And I have no way of knowing if that's true or false. But everything I've heard tells me that. If that's the case, and you believe that Purdy and Lance are about the same as far as performance, but the boys want Purdy and the boys believe in Purdy, play Purdy. No doubt about it.
Training camp. Obviously, Sam Darnold is there. And the question is, what about Trey Lance? Rumors galore that Lance, they were, again, taking calls on him. They weren't making them. Big difference between making and taking.
Yeah, that was all false. We talked about that. We talked about that here on the channel.
Phone calls on Lance, and as we all know, Lance is still on the team. And I knew, look, if they're going to trade Trey Lance, it's going to be much later in the summer when they know what's going on with Purdy and what Sam Darnold looks like. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if they're going to trade Trey Lance because right now the coach in talking.
I don't think Sam Darnold is a factor at all. I think Darnold is a guy to kind of bring some experience and some stability to the locker room, to some stability to the quarterback room. Purdy is still a 7th round pick or whatever, trying to figure this stuff out. He hasn't played a full season. Trey Lance hasn't played a full game. They need someone there. And Sam Darnold is that guy. Sam Darnold is not a part of the quarterback competition.
About Lance coming back from injury, not just with the ankle, but he had a hand injury going into last season.
Well, Purdy's injured too.
That he believes
or coming off of an injury.
As healthy as he's been in a long time.
Yeah.
And listen to how he refers to him. He refers to him as the best one that they currently have right now on the roster.
I think Trey's the best that we've had him right now. And yeah, we got to get in OTAs and practice, but when you just watch his feet, his timing, how he's throwing the ball, he's in such a better place now than he was last year at this time. And I know he's coming off a big injury, but it's because he was healthier this year. Even though last year was a little injury with a hairline fracture on a pinky, but it healed the wrong way. And this year, it's a bad break on the ankle, but it healed right, like most of them do. And now I just see him in such a better place. And now
God, Kyle's the man. God, what a guy.
we'll present to him some football and stuff when we get to OTAs. We're allowed 9 of them, and we'll put players out there, and we'll see how he's playing. We'll let him and Sam roll, and then we'll evaluate all that, and we'll take 40 days off, and we'll see how we want to lay it out in training camp.
If it was me, I'm not a GM, I certainly should be. If it was me, I'd play Trey Lance. If it's the same. If I think that Trey and Brock are about the same, or I think Trey's a little bit better, I'd play Trey. The only way you do not play Trey Lance is if he's just terrible. If you just whiffed on the pick. That's it. But as far as like a battleship, risk kind of monopoly trading situation, arguably Brock Purdy is at the highest value he'll ever be. So maybe you look at dealing Brock Purdy. Like maybe you look at, if Trey Lance is your guy, maybe you deal Purdy to a team, get rid of the quarterback competition, get some value for him, let Darnold be the backup, and go with Trey Lance. I mean, maybe that's the situation. Again, I don't know what Trey Lance is doing in practice, but what Kyle's saying right there, and it all could be lies, right? Because the Niners could be very cognizant of trying to get rid of Trey Lance. So in every single media situation, they could be saying, he looks great, he's our guy, he's the best, he looks amazing, we're taking calls, whatever. Because they're trying to drum up interest. That could certainly be a thing too. But it's hard. It's very interesting because the Niners are a really well-run organization. I would not be surprised at all if they're letting people think that Trey Lance is not going to play, and they're letting people think Brock Purdy is the franchise. And I would not be surprised at all if they rolled Trey Lance out there and he had an incredible year.
Let him and Sam roll. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Here's what's so damn unique about the San Francisco 49ers. When you draft a kid 3rd overall by trading up 2 first-round picks in future drafts to go get him, and he hardly plays for you, that normally means coach and general manager are history. But instead, what do? They made 2 straight NFC championship games without him.
Crazy.
And normally, that team that makes 2 straight NFC championship game appearances will absolutely have the quarterback who took them there.
Yeah, they are a really interesting team. Because to kind of reiterate what Rich was saying, the Niners are really good, but they don't have a quarterback. But somehow they have this like prized quarterback prospect who has also somehow never played. Like, it's bananas that it's crazy they even have him. But it's also crazy that he's never played and no one knows what he can do. Yet they've had all of this success with virtually any quarterback. So it's just a weird predicament all around.
As their quarterback coming into the following season to see if they can make a 3rd straight NFC championship game, and heaven forbid the Super Bowl, especially if the guy who took them to their previous Super Bowl was the quarterback who took them to one of the NFC championship games and played so damn well that they were positioned to make it with a kid they chose in the last pick in the draft that they were forced to turn to. And he's now starting for the Vegas Raiders. And the kid that they turned to might not be the starter because he's coming back from injury. And so the kid that they start might be the kid that they went and moved up to draft 3rd overall. And if it doesn't work out, they'll go to the kid they draft last overall last year.
Yeah, it's nuts. And that's why I think what Rich just laid out at the very end there is why I think you go with Lance. Because it's put up or shut up time for Lance. Not only for him, but for the franchise, for the roster, for the locker room, whatever. You got to see what he can do. If he can't do it, you go to Purdy and you never look back. Because you got Purdy in the last pick of the draft. There's no pressure to use Purdy. It's one of those deals where it's like, it's almost a win-win. Because if you don't go to Purdy, that means Trey Lance is good. If you do go to Purdy, it means that The fans get what they want. The locker room gets what they want, and you end the saga of Trey Lance, right? So, and then you can move forward. And if you don't think Purdy's the guy, you can go get someone else in free agency, trade, draft, however you want to do it. The organization is good enough to figure that out in the future. But going with Purdy first, I don't think is as win-win. Because if you go with Purdy first, and then you go to Lance, that means Purdy is not good, and the rose is off of Purdy. But you still don't know if Lance can play. So it's better to find out that Lance can play, further develop Purdy, let Purdy heal up, further deal with that, and handle the Lance thing on its own, because you know what Purdy can do, right? If that makes sense. It's convoluted, but I would start Trey Lance. If all things were equal. The only caveat is if Trey Lance is absolute dog water trash. Like if he's just bad. If he cannot play, and you know that, and you're watching him in practice, and you're like, man, this guy cannot do it. Then don't do it. Don't roll him out there. There's no point. But if you think, let's give him a shot, let's see what he can do, we want to try him out there, let it rip.
Here, it's unbelievable. There is no charted territory for us to base any opinion on it.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that the coach knows what the hell he's doing.
Think about this. The Niners lost their defensive coordinator. Their pseudo starting quarterback has played 7 games and coming off of an injury. They have an unknown rookie-ish quarterback coming off of an injury. And they are currently the favorites, or they're currently the second favorites to win the NFC, right behind the Eagles. That's how good the Niners are. That's crazy. You could argue the Niners have a bottom 5 quarterback room in the NFL. Who would you rather have right now? Would you rather have Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis, or Brock Purdy and Trey Lance? How much of a difference is there between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance and Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield? Who would you rather have? Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, or Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi? It's crazy when you think about it. It's crazy when you think about how unknown and how much mystery there is around the Niners quarterback room, yet how this team keeps winning and how they're expected to win again. Vegas is telling you, we think the Niners are going to be really good this year. We think the Niners are going to be in the NFC Championship game. That's what they're telling you. They're telling you they think it's going to be Philly, San Francisco again in the NFC Championship game. Now, I think it'll be Philly and New Orleans, but it is what it is.
And so does the GM, because this team is so incredibly talented that, well, they drafted a kicker in the 3rd round, and tons of people batted an eyelash. And the way I was pushing back is, well, I know the kicker. He went to Michigan. He's the best kicker Michigan's ever had. His name is Jake Moody. And you're set up everywhere else. You're set up absolutely everywhere else. So, unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable. What do you think, though? I mean, what do y'all think? I know a lot of Niners fans watch this channel. I get a ton of comments about the Niners. And, you know, obviously I'm in New Orleans. It's not a Saints channel, but we cover the Saints a ton. They're my home, my favorite team, my hometown team, or not my hometown, but the team of the city I'm living in. Hometown is in Mississippi, of course. Shout out Mississippi. But the Niners probably are the team I followed the second closest, just because I was a huge fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. I had the Super Bowl ticket last year, so when you have a Super Bowl ticket on a team, you're rooting for them. So it's interesting. So we do talk Niners a lot here. So let me know in the comments below. 1, who do you think will start, Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? B/2, who would you start, Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? What would you do if you were in John Lynch's shoes, if you were in Kyle Shanahan's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.